When I was a kid, my mum was adamant that I shouldn't use the word hate. Adamant. It wasn't really a word that we used in the house. However, in the careers world, it is really common to hear people say that they hate one particular thing: cover letters. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So, cover letters, I would argue, are an integral part of the job application process. Now, as you'll see from the presentation that I'm about to share with you, not everybody agrees. However, because I have absolutely seen evidence that they are an important part of the process, and because some of the employers that you're going to be engaging with are going to ask for one, it's really important that you are equipped to write great cover letters. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So bear with me while I share my screen. All right, so let's talk about creating compelling cover letters. And this is from the perspective of being for job applications. That's what we're going to be talking about today. In today's session, we are going to look at what is a cover letter. We're going to talk about why they're controversial, because I don't want you to come away from this all sunshine and roses and thinking, oh, great, okay, I'm ready to do cover letters. And then you go home or you go speak to somebody else and they go, cover letters are useless, right? I want you to understand that there is that perspective and it's prevalent. So we're going to address it. We're going to talk about why you're going to write them anyway. We're going to talk about crafting really great cover letters. And I'm also going to share a few resources with you. So, what is a cover letter? For some professionals, as I mentioned, the first response to this would be a waste of time. I'm going to say don't listen to those people. I am creating this video because cover letters can really have a positive impact on your application. So you might as well know how to create them well. What I will agree with, however, is that a poorly crafted cover letter can be a waste of time. But as a result of you watching, engaging, and taking action with this video, that's not going to be an issue that you have. So a well-written cover letter received by somebody who actually reads cover letters can truly make you stand out as a candidate. So what is a cover letter? A cover letter is a document which tends to accompany a CV or resume as part of a job application. Now, it shouldn't merely repeat what's in your CV. It's important that you advance on what is in there. So it will include some highlights, and also it will really talk about your interest in the organization, right? That's one of the many reasons why it's important. It's a rare part of the job application where you get to actually actively connect with the organization that you're applying to. So, as I said there, it is one of your few opportunities to highlight your connection and your resonance with the company that you are applying to join. So how are cover letters used? They are used in early career hiring and also in later stages of your career to get a really quick sense of you as an applicant and your potential for the role and the company. So what employers are likely to look out for is your interest in the role itself and the wider organization, the specific organization that you're applying to. They're interested in seeing a sense of personality, a sense of who you are, your basic communication skills, and evidence of your reliability and your enthusiasm. Cover letters don't need to be lengthy. Typically, I would say 3/4 of a page to a page. So that's approximately 250 to 300 words. The exception there would be if an organization wants you to address lots of things specifically. Like I remember a very long time ago, I applied to a role at Amazon. And at the time, what they asked for in a cover letter was that you needed to talk about what I believe they called their 14 leadership principles, right? So if you're needing to do something like that, then yes, it's going to be longer than a page. But otherwise, really keep it short, keep it sharp, keep it engaging. Okay, so before I give you tips on how to write a great cover letter, let's actually talk about why they are controversial. Why are cover letters controversial? A number of people, including some reporters, and what I've done here is I decided to go into LinkedIn and just do a search on cover letters because I wanted to find a few posts, right? A few posts where people are sharing some of their ideas about cover letters. Now, remember the thing is, remember in this day and age, everybody can share their opinions. Not everybody is an authority. But even people who are authorities may have a different opinion to yours or to mine, right? But I did want to share, I wanted to give you some of the temperature of what is discussed in professional spaces when it comes to cover letters. So a number of people, including some recruiters, which is what can sway many applicants, say that cover letters are surplus to requirements. They're not needed. They say that CVs, your CV, your resume should be enough. They say that they can be a waste of time because they're not read. And these days, because they can be so easily created by some kind of generative AI platform, it feels even more useless, right? Because these things can just be churned out. So, one of the questions that was asked here on LinkedIn is, are cover letters becoming obsolete, right? And you can see that at least at the time of, and it was just a few people who voted, the main point was people thought that they're not so important anymore. So let's really address the skeptics, including somebody who, like me, is a career coach. I'm not sure that he actually calls himself a career coach, actually. But he says here, I just want everyone to know that I'm the OG hater of cover letters. I was hating on cover letters before it was cool to hate on cover letters, right? And he ultimately carries on his post in that sort of way. So you can see that you have a human resources expert here going, I have to say it, cover letters are useless. If people are applying for a job, then that tells you that they're interested. There was this funny one here. I'd rather eat a whole bus tire than write a cover letter for a job. And I've often seen people talk about how, if a cover letter says, if a job application says that a cover letter is required, they decide not to apply, right? So that's some of the energy around it, right? As you can see in some of these posts here, including somebody who's ex-Google saying that you don't need cover letters in big tech. Now, as you can also see here, there are lots of cover letters sort of supporters and advocates and tolerators. So you have Careers in Sport and Working Wales, who in the last few weeks, at the time of recording this, wrote some posts in relation to cover letters. So one of them, Careers in Sport, talked about how your cover letter could be holding you back from your dream sports job, but it doesn't have to. They talk about how in the competitive world of sports, a great cover letter can make all the difference, right? So you can see just from that why I'm one of those career coaches that really supports you to create and submit a cover letter. Now, Working Wales had a similar message. They talk about how their particular Spotlight On article that week talked about covering letters and emails, which they describe as a first step to standing out and getting noticed. Yes? So there are going to be a range of organizations that feel that way. So if you're not submitting a cover letter, okay, yes, it might be fine because you might be reaching somebody that doesn't check them, but also you might be reaching people that feel this way, right? Or this way. So you've got somebody here on LinkedIn who, asks the question, right? A fair question. Do hiring managers even read cover letters anymore? And how it came up in a session, and then sort of went on to talk about some of the tips in case you are going to submit a cover letter. And then you have somebody here who is an associate director of talent. And she talked about how they posted a role in their talent acquisition team and how within 24 hours, they had more than 400 applications, right? More than 400 applications for a single role within 24 hours. So she goes on to talk about how that number isn't surprising in a competitive market, and I totally agree, but then went on to say, out of 400 plus applications, very few included a tailored CV or cover letter. And she went on to talk about how that is such a missed opportunity, and a very small few tweaks can make your application stand out. And then sort of talked about, including motivation and that sort of thing. So in a sea of experienced, capable recruiters, those little touches are what truly makes you stand out. So that's one of the things that she shared. So as you can see, this is, people are quite divided on this. So why not put yourself in the best possible situation by actually just submitting it? So this is why I say just do it, write cover letters anyway. It's worth it because some recruiters and hiring managers are interested in more than whether you have the skills or experience that they need. Some of them are actually also interested in whether the applicant, so whether you are a good fit for the role or the company. And that's why I'm creating this video, which will help you to actually create great cover letters, right? Because you will be able to speak to those people for whom this is important. And as was highlighted by one of those LinkedIn posts, many people won't submit one, right? Many people won't submit one for the reasons of those sorts of objections that have been shared. So when it comes to writing a cover letter, here is a really great place to start. It is the place that I would recommend you starting. However, if it's not your process, that's absolutely fine. But if you find yourself getting stuck because you've jumped straight into writing, then circle back to this. So I recommend that you prepare with mind maps. And there are kind of two areas in which that I recommend that you prepare. One is your research of the organization itself. So you would put the name of the company in the middle of your mind map, and then go off and look at a range of different things. And we'll be talking about what some of those things can be in a few minutes. And then also you can do the same about your activities or experiences. So here's the thing, if you've got like your CV ready and to hand, then maybe you don't need to do this second mind map. Maybe just having your CV in front of you is sufficient in terms of reminding you about your experiences to date. If, however, you want to think a little bit beyond that, you think that you might be including some things more anecdotally, or for whatever reason, if you want to sort of think about your activities and your experiences as well, you can create another mind map with those. Okay, so here it is, as promised, the part of the video where we're talking about crafting great cover letters in terms of the actual content. So for paragraph 1, I would say that that is your introduction, and you're going to look at what you're applying for and maybe how you found it, 1 or 2 sentences on why the role interests you, and where possible, include something about the organization itself. So immediately it feels personalized, not generic. I typically think if you can sandwich your cover letter with something that is specific to the organization or a few things, and again at the bottom, then that's great. Then the person reading it is really going to be sensing that it isn't just a kind of generic churned out standard cover letter. Then on to paragraph 2 is more about why you are a good fit. So that might link to your skills from school or uni, your hobbies, your volunteering, your part-time work, your work experience. And you might want to use 1, 2, or 3 mini examples, right? Not regurgitating what's in your CV, but a few mini examples sharing how some of the experience that you have had links to competencies that are important to them, right? So, and job descriptions tend to tell you what sort of competencies are important. So in some of the examples that I shared here, it's some of the competencies that businesses tend to want to see, right? So teamwork, reliability, leadership skills, those sorts of things. So that's why I shared those kind of examples. And then paragraph 3, a little bit more about why you want to work with the employer. That can go into a ton more detail about why that organization specifically, what are some of the things that resonate with you. And then you close kind of re-emphasizing your enthusiasm, thanking them with a professional sign-off. And like I said, again, where possible, link to something within the organization. So that's ultimately how, a structure for a cover letter. There isn't any one way, but that's a way that works pretty well. Now, right at the end of this video, I'm going to share with you a few resources, and you'll be able to go and actually see some sample cover letters. So hopefully that will help as well. And really, the last thing that I want to talk about in terms of the content itself in this context is also what to avoid. So when it comes to what to avoid, you need to be careful to avoid using the same letter for every job, talking about only what you want rather than what you could give. And let me tell you, right, if you are improving a cover letter, for example, when you add what you can give, you will see the difference. You will see how powerful that is. You also don't want to repeat the CV verbatim, right? As I said, it's just kind of highlights. You want to avoid any spelling areas. You want to avoid any spelling errors, especially the employer's name, but really any in general. And also, you don't want to create and submit kind of soulless AI-generated letters either. So if you are somebody who chooses to use that to help with your structure or something like that, then that's down to you. Fair play, like you have the tools to hand. You can work out if that's what you want to do. But let it be about structure, right? If you want to work out your whole thing and you're not, planning to use the one that I've shared with you here, but don't let it be something that AI has just churned out. That is absolutely not going to be helpful. Let's talk about research for the cover letters and really researching the organization, because as I mentioned, my personal reason for why I'm a big advocate of cover letters, as much as they are typically hated, right, is that it really is one of the only opportunities where you can connect with the organization, right? Where you can talk about why them, not just why you're interested in sustainability or marketing or healthcare or whatever, but why with their organization specifically. So at a minimum, you want to research the organization from their own website. So useful information there might include company values, what they share in their career section, what they might share in their news and events, so you get a sense of what's going on. That's kind of really your minimum. And then also maybe just some general understanding of the market and the sector. So if you're submitting a cover letter, I would say that that is the absolute minimum in terms of personalization. But my lovelies, why stop at the minimum, right? Because that is, the reason that you're doing a cover letter is to stand out. So what is more advanced, and I've separated it out in this way because if you're somebody who's doing your first cover letter, as I suspect some of you watching this will be, then I don't want you to get overwhelmed and think, oh, well, I need to do all of these things or it's pointless. It's more useful for you to know that this is something that you can build up to, or if from the get-go you want to make sure that your cover letter is as strong as possible, you can include some of these more advanced things. So that includes looking at what the organization is talking about now, and that involves really checking out their socials. So from LinkedIn to YouTube to Instagram, getting to know what the organization is talking about now and what they've been talking about recently. Sometimes you'll be able to even see campaigns and hashtags and all sorts of things like that, right? Which really shows that you're engaging with them, that you're interested in them, that you've taken the time to get to know a bit more about the organization. Also, LinkedIn really is a great source for seeing content from thought leaders and content creators from the organization that you're applying to. So LinkedIn company pages, I would say, aren't the most dynamic, right? Maybe there are people using them in a dynamic way, in which case, please forgive me for saying so, but I'd say they're not necessarily the most dynamic. So check them out. But also it really is about, kind of looking up the organization and then looking at people and looking at whether there are people that are sort of posting about it. So that's another sort of more advanced way of being able to do research about the organization. And then another one is podcasts. Now, I've said audio podcasts. I'm partial to an audio podcast. But if you wanted to take the time to watch it on video, you really could. The benefit, of course, of audio podcasts or just listening to a video is that you can kind of be doing other things. You can be on your commute. You can be doing different things while listening and learning. And why this is quite good is whether it is their own podcast, so whether it's the organization's own podcast or whether somebody from the organization has featured on another, the beautiful thing about integrating content into your cover letters is that you know that your cover letter isn't going to read the same as all the other applicants, right? Because you were picking a specific piece of content that resonates with you for some reason, and you're able to kind of quote it and mention it and do that sort of thing in the cover letter. So it can be a really engaging way to sort of start or end a cover letter. So here are some of the examples of some of the podcasts that are out there. Now, these are all audio podcasts. They may also have video versions. I'm unsure. You can check it out yourself if you would like to. But you can really see the range. So we have from kind of like finance, investment banking types like Goldman Sachs. You have consulting like the McKinsey podcast. You've got beauty, like what Sephora has created. And they have both kind of branded content and I think also some of their own. And then the NHS also has at least one podcast that I've discovered. And then you also have the more sort of industry related ones. So you have, the Marketing Week podcast. So clearly, as it sounds, there are people that have things to say about marketing that will feature on that podcast. Likewise, The Times has a tech podcast. And there's a podcaster called Kelly that has a Women in STEM podcast as well, right? And then another one I've included here is the Arup sort of Sustainable Forces podcast, which sounds to me like it would be about kind of engineering and building and the built environment as relates to sustainability. It's what I would think that would be about. So you can do some searches, you can subscribe, you can listen, and just find some really nice nuggets that you might be able to include somewhere in your cover letter. So I'm going to circle back to generative AI because it's an important thing to recognize. It's really important to strike the balance between, using resources that you have access to you well. And if ethically and all the rest of it, you feel okay to use generative AI, then just be really careful about doing so, is what I would say. So again, a few more LinkedIn posts to share what you're seeing. You have PWE Recruitment Group here, which talks about how to use AI to help you write a cover letter. And then they shared a fuller article about that. You have somebody who wrote an opinion piece in Forbes about, are there a waste of time? Are cover letters dead? And of course, that will kind of likely include AI as one of the topics within that. And then also somebody else kind of questioning ChatGPT for cover writing and talking about how they can clock it a mile off. And especially if it's a post where you need to be able to show your own like unique and beautiful skills. If you were counting on, what is out there and just the kind of compilation that it creates, then that's not going to be showing you off as your best self. Okay, so before we finished, I wanted us to have a look at a few job descriptions so you can see a little bit what I mean about how when you look at job descriptions, and especially if you take a highlighter to it, you can start to see some of the things that they might be interested in seeing in a cover letter. So this is a people business intelligence internship at Chanel. So Chanel is a brand, comes under consumer, FMCG, which is fast moving consumer goods and retail. And you can see that they talk about what their values are, right? And how they want people to feel at work. They talk about the People Solutions team being a human-centered employer. They talk about data. They talk about digital solutions. They talk about curious and motivated, right? Being curious and motivated. And then they talk a little bit more about who you would be working with. And as you go further down, it talks more about the role, and it talks about what you are energized by as a candidate specifically. So again, you can kind of go through this with a highlighter and be like, okay, they might want me to talk about my ability when it comes to analytics. They might want me to talk about, what we're kind of seeing here, bringing creativity and ideas and working independently. And so you can pick out some of those things, make sure that you've personalized your, CV to maybe reflect some of their language, but really your cover letter is your canvas to really talk about it a lot more, right? So when they say they want sort of knowledge of data modeling techniques, right, that gives you an opportunity to give an example of that in your cover letter. So I wanted to share another one here. So this is Christie's, who is looking for who is offering a post-war and contemporary art graduate internship. And then again, here you can see that it talks about the role and it talks about the candidate. Now let's look at the bit where they're talking about the candidate. Now, again, you can imagine taking a highlighter to this, can't you? So it would be like excellent communication and interpersonal skills, your language skills, your attention to detail, being a good team worker, right? So you can see some of the things that you might want to highlight and then choose some key points that you're going to include within your cover letter. So really what I wanted to finish with is cover letter resources. So hopefully you have found this video useful. And if you're lucky and you were doing this in a class, maybe your teacher or tutor will have access to a cover letter template for you. But as I mentioned, there are also places like Harvard, which has a document which gives lots more detail and information about how to write really great resumes and cover letters. And then also LSE Careers, where at the time of doing this video, at the time of recording this video, that is somewhere that I freelance. And so I love to share this document because it's readily available online, not just to LSE students. And I know in there is a sample cover letter, which is quite helpful. It's just the cautionary tale, the kind of disclaimer that I would share is that, remember, with kind of example cover letters, they're typically generic. So what they're not doing is doing that really, really important thing of connecting with the organization that I'm talking about, right? So you get to see how some of it can be put together, but it won't do that really crucial, yes, I'm connecting with the organization part of it. So yes, and here as well, you can see an example of how if you've been applying and not hearing back, maybe it's to do with your storytelling. And within a cover letter, storytelling is certainly something that you can do. So that is what I wanted to share with you within this video. I hope that you have found it really useful. As I said, hopefully you will have a template that has been shared with you, or you will be able to click on some of the links that you see under this video to be able to access one. And or you know that there is Harvard, there is LSE, and I'm sure if you do some of your own digging, if you go to university career centers, they may have some good cover letter examples for you if you want to see a few different ones. So enjoy, right? As I said, we talked about the elephant in the room. We talked about people hating on cover letters. We talked about the fact that some recruiters say that they don't even look at them. But what if you are applying somewhere where they do? And you know that things are competitive and you know that you want to show your best self, cover letters can really, really help you do that. I hope that this has been interesting and useful for you. If you are catching this on YouTube, please feel free to leave a comment below and let me know what has been the most useful for you. And other than that, I look forward to catching you on another video soon. Bye. Enjoyed this video?
Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and make sure that you come back for another video soon.